Hello there, ladies and gentlems. It is I, McBadass, back here with BonechipAK to talk about the Mirror Cup, which is an extra interesting cup because it's like 8 of them all at once.
Yeah, so Mirror Cup is, like, I know everyone was super looking forward to this month's cup when it was being announced because it's like the very end of the season. They're like, man, what are they going to come up with? I hope it's something really cool and interesting. And initially, I feel like a lot of people were sort of disappointed that they brought back all the other cups because they were like, oh, that's lazy. We've done this before. But as I'm sure a lot of you now know, or if you haven't, we're going to tell you, things have really changed in a lot of the old cups, which is really cool and really adds a new flavor to a lot of the previous iterations of all these things. And on top of that, not everyone started PvP way back when. For example, this gentleman here, he started with, which one did you start
Tempest.
with? Tempest was the first cup, which you won, correct? Yeah. So that's a pretty hot start over there. But yeah, so you get a chance to maybe play a cup that you never even had any experience with, which is always fun. It's cool to get that opportunity again that you didn't totally completely miss out just because you started late. So I think people are coming around on the Mirror Cup overall. Personally, there's a few cups that I'm super excited about, but also there are several cups that I am not excited about. Not at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say with a lot of like the changes that they've implemented with like the stat affecting moves
Mhm.
and then just new moves that have
Yep.
been added all together. I feel like there's a handful of Pokemon and moves that kind of radically change
Oh yeah.
some of the cups.
Yep.
Sometimes
Big time changes.
not for the better.
Right. Definitely, I would agree with that. So, basically, I think the way that we want to cover it is not from the perspective of which ones we think are the most balanced or the ones that we personally want to play. We're going to kind of rank these cups, and we're ranking them in terms of how interesting they are this second time around. So for me, at the bottom are Rainbow and Jungle. And the reason for this is those cups happened 1 or 2 months ago, so they're pretty recent. The changes to the moves and everything that have happened lately really didn't shake up the meta too much, so if you did those cups again, it would be exactly the same as what they were the first time around. And Jungle was okay. I thought there were a little bit of balance issues with some things. Vigoroth, cough, cough. But Rainbow is a perfectly fine. I think it's a pretty well balanced cup. It was a little bit rock paper scissors-y, but I found that you could still pull off wins even with the wrong lead in that cup. So I think Rainbow Cup would be fine to play again. I just don't care because it's very much the same as it ever was. So.
Yeah, I feel like Rainbow Cup is always going to have a special place on my heart just for the fact that it was so different from all the other cups.
Yeah.
Of like, well, we're not going to ban anything. It's just Gen 1 and Gen 2.
Yeah, that was I appreciated that because that was a really creative constraint, and it led to a lot of things that otherwise maybe wouldn't have been picked to be considered much more highly, like your Confusion Executor or Macargo, Mantine. Well, Mantine's pretty solid in general, but there were a few picks in that cup that have really shown where they otherwise would sort of have fallen flat, probably.
Also, Team Water Boys.
Yeah, that almost worked. Oh, it was so close. Almost. I was one match away from using only water types and winning Rainbow Cup, and I could have done it. Don't get stung.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's not a Beedrill.
Yeah.
So you're not gonna get like eviscerated and die. It's just gonna hurt.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of Rainbow and Jungle. Not much really needs to be said about those two. The next cup on our list, and I'm actually gonna pull it up to make sure I'm not.
Well, before we move on,
Okay.
I was going to mention something about the fact that not much more has changed in Jungle Cup beyond what changed during Jungle Cup. Which
Right.
was Charm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which just I'm still salty about that. I felt like I had really figured out the meta and I was like, yeah, I got this. I'm gonna do good in the Jungle Cup. And then they were like, oh, by the way, now there's Wigglytuff. It's like,
yeah, that was a cool shakeup, I thought, to be honest, because people were super high on Wigglytuff because they were like, man, look at these win rates, it's crazy, but it wasn't as strong as people thought. I believe it wasn't quite as strong as people thought. It was a good pick, obviously, but it wasn't some kind of game wrecker. But it was something you had to build around, though, so it sort of added intrigue. But if you get to the point, like Nicholas said, when you get to the point where you feel super comfortable with the meta, you have so much confidence, it's so easy to play, everything just feels like it goes so smoothly, and then for someone to throw a wrench in that is very frustrating. So that was, I will agree with you on that. I was like, oh, this is cool. Dang it. Now I've got to figure out what I'm doing. So.
Yeah. Well, I feel like I'm a little bit biased in that regard because I was really, really looking forward to running Armaldo in the Jungle Cup.
Oh yeah, Armaldo.
It was gonna be halfway good, and then Wigglytuff showed up and was just like, I don't care about your Armaldo, get out of here.
Yeah, we were actually doing a lot of practice battles where he used Armaldo against me, and I actually ended up changing my lineup because I can't handle this thing. It's so weird and I can't deal with it. So I changed my lineup to deal with it. And then it became totally irrelevant anyway. So I was like, well, whatever. That's a bummer.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it then for Rainbow and Jungle.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
And I don't know. We could list off top picks for those, but again, they haven't really changed much, so I don't feel like that's necessary.
Whatever you used last time or whatever found success last time, it's pretty much still good. Yeah, not much else to add there. So the next cup on our list is one that's I don't know, we both have memories of, I guess. I'm not sure how to phrase it, but Kingdom Cup, which in my opinion was one of the least enjoyable. Just for the fact that Lucario, the way Lucario functioned in that cup was so dumb. I mean, if you got it off to the right start, you won. Period. It was so frustrating to me that that's how that cup played out, and your entire strategy had to be based around whether or not you could deal with this Lucario. And I can't tell you how frustrating that cup was for me. I won, and I hated it. If that tells you anything, I won that cup, and I think it sucked. I'm not a fan of that cup. So for me, that's very low on the interest. It's relatively the same. There's a few new players as far as Probopass, some other rock or steel, something. Blaziken got a little better actually with the addition of Blast Burn and Blaze Kick, which is nice because Blaziken was one that I like to use as sort of an off pick. So that was fun.
I was definitely forced into using a Blaziken because
you didn't have a Lucario.
I don't have a Lucario.
Yeah, that's
a nightmare.
And then Bronzong is a little better now than it was because the charge moves have been upgraded. But to be honest, it's Lapras, Lucario, Bastiodon, Altaria, the same. If you bring those four, you don't need any other Pokemon, and you just have to figure out a way to deal with Lucario, and that's it. And I don't appreciate that very much. So that's why Kingdom for me is very low on my interest level. Yeah.
Right.
How are your feelings on this one?
I mean, it's more or less what you said of it just, I had pretty negative experiences, and I didn't do well.
Yeah, right, yeah.
It was pretty much, fixated around Lucario, and to a lesser extent, Bastiodon.
Right.
I feel like Bastiodon was way more hyped than he was actually a problem.
Yeah, I would agree. I powered mine up, and I found good use for it, but I didn't feel like that was the reason I won. It was definitely the way I used and played around Lucario was the reason I won. Which makes me so proud that I could use a broken Pokemon to its fullest potential.
Fun stuff. But yeah, I don't know. That was one of those things where I was so over prepared for Lucario and Bastiodon that I completely forgot to be prepared for
Lapras. Right? Yeah, Lapras was also super good.
Yeah, it's just damn it, no one was talking about this.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Such a problem. And also, like, I didn't do myself any favors by not having Lucario the first time.
I mean, what do you get? If you don't have one, you don't have one, you know, so.
Yeah. So, fun stuff.
The next on our list in terms of, well, actually, this is my personal list. We haven't necessarily discussed this so much, but this is my personal list.
This is me picking BonechipAK's brain on that.
Yeah. So, for me, the next one, in terms of how interesting it is Tempest Cup. So, Tempest Cup was the only cup I didn't win. Actually, I didn't win regionals either. Tempest and regionals are the only two I didn't win. At least one of the cups of the month that we did. And that's not necessarily why I don't like it. I actually like Tempest. I think it's a really well-balanced cup with a lot of interesting kinds of picks that you can have. The only problem with it is it's basically the same as it was before. There's a few minor differences. The biggest difference is Ice Shard Lapras. Everyone's going to have one this time around, which means that Celio gets better because it kind of counters Ice Shard Lapras pretty good. And then Tropius is slightly less amazing. It's still amazing, but only slightly less so because of all the ice coming at it.
Right.
Swampert has been introduced, but
oh man,
in this cup, given that there's so much grass, Swampert isn't necessarily, a total game changer, game wrecker. It's still good. Don't get me wrong. If you haven't heard the news on Swampert, fun fact, I'm full of fun facts, and one fun fact I've got for you is Swampert's really good. It's really good.
Swampert specifically is one that I feel like was pretty good before because it had like so much.
Yeah, so
swing.
I would say it was like the tier. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, so I felt like it was a tier 4 Mud Boy before. So you have Whiscash, Marshtomp, and Quagsire, which I think were all better, and then Swampert was, in there. Now, I don't necessarily think it's the best one, but it has uses that the other ones don't quite hold up to, because Hydro Cannon is ridiculous. The Community Day starter moves are so strong. It's insane. And then with the Mud Shot, it gets to it so fast. So I'm not ready to say it's the best one because Whiscash is still really, really good. And then Quagsire has its uses, especially with Acid Spray and funky stuff that you can do there. But I will say it is much better than it was before. And we're going to talk about it again 2 more times? 2 more times. Yeah, so that's new. Other than that, I mean, Abomasnow's still good, Lantern's still good, Steelig's still fine, Skarmory's okay, like, Altaria still does things. It's the same as it was the first time around.
I do think it's pretty interesting that there seems to be a pretty minimal amount of like the stat affecting moves that have been introduced into this cup specifically.
Oh yeah,
I feel like it's kind of just a
you got
coincidence,
Acid Spray
but-
with Quagsire, and that might be the end of the list. There's not a whole lot of that in this cup, which is, I mean, it makes it a little less interesting, but it's not necessarily the biggest deal.
I don't know. I feel like it's a cool throwback.
For sure.
Of like, oh yeah, remember when there weren't stat boosts? Yeah, that was the time.
Remember life before the change?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got for Tempest. The next most interesting are Nightmare and Boulder. And when I say interesting, I mean it's fascinating how the changes have affected the meta for both of those, the move changes and the new Pokemon and everything. Because they went from, well, Boulder, to be honest, I'll be perfectly honest, Boulder was also not a great cup. It was very, very top heavy. It was Skarmory and Medicham and Mud Boys and maybe a Skarmory counter. And that's your whole team. That's your whole team. So, it wasn't wasn't super intriguing, and for the people that couldn't afford a fully powered up Medicham, they were at such a disadvantage. So it was just kind of, it wasn't great, if I'm being honest. Not the best cup.
And now that Medicham has Power Up Punch.
Now that Medicham has Power Up Punch, it is so much worse than it was before. Like, it's so bad. So you go, one shield, all right, he loses a few, he's not the worst thing. No, do 2 shields versus 2 shields. Medicham does not lose. It loses to, I think, 2 Pokemon in the entire cup with 2 shields. That being Charm Gallade, which is totally weird that's the top contender in that sense.
Psychic Fighter versus Psychic Fighter.
Right. So bizarre. So that one, and then I believe Torterra also beats it in 2 shields. But the problem with Torterra beating it in 2 shields is that it only forces Medicham to use 1. So then you're down shields, which is, it's not a good time, typically speaking. Especially when you have things like Swampert that can get off the charge moves really, really fast. You don't want to be in that situation. So that's a little rough. So yeah, Skarmory, Medicham, Swampert, and Gallade. You need those 4 on your team. And I'd say you need those 4 on your team. And then Torterra is possible to put in, and then maybe a Skarmory counter. Look, I've just created every single team in Boulder. And if you don't build this team, you're probably going to lose. Boulder is not a good cup right now. I'm not a fan. A lot of people are very worried about Nightmare being broken because of Charm Gardevoir. I personally think that Boulder is even worse in terms of the balance right now. So we are scheduled to do a Boulder Cup for one of ours. I will either not attend or I will not put it toward my rankings because that's how little I like that cup. And
just intentionally run everything not meta.
Oh yeah, 5 Poliwhirls. I don't care. Like, no, I don't like it. I really not a fan. So the next one up again is another cup the changes have drastically affected, and that's the Twilight Cup, like we just said. So Nightmare Cup. So, like we said, everyone loves Gardevoir, and that's because Gardevoir is really freaking good. So, 1 shield versus 1 shield, it wins 91%
Holy crap.
of the battles. Yeah, so that's not great. Let's see how about 2 shields against 2 shields? Well, then it wins 92.5% of the battles.
Damn.
Loses to 5 things. That being Matang, Metagross, Drapion, Wobbuffet, and Alolan Muck. And the Alolan Muck is extremely close, and the Wobbuffet is extremely close, and the Drapion is pretty close, and I think you're running like... Oh no, you are running. You're running Bite with that Drapion if you want to do it that way.
Oh,
so,
okay.
So yeah, Gardevoir's really, really good. The reason I don't think it's as bad as Boulder is, since it's running Charm, it's only going to get to 1 charge move in most situations. Meaning that if you commit shields to keep your Gardevoir alive, you're probably going to be running a shield deficit, which is, again, not ideal, but you can carry the momentum forward if you get the first KO and have the right matchups. We've played PvP, we kind of understand how this goes, I think, for the most part. But, yeah, I mean, winning 90% of your matchups, we've never seen that. Like, that's not something that's been before. I think Lapras won like 80% of its matchups or something in Tempest.
Oh, Tempest.
Maybe, or no, Kingdom. One of the cups Lapras won around 80%, and that was about as high as we've seen. So, anyways, Nightmare and Boulder, not very even cups. I don't know that there's much to talk about with them. They don't seem fun. They seem frustrating. so now we're going to get into the final 2 cups, which are the cups that I have been spending the most time working on. I have been theory crafting and building teams, and that is Regionals and Twilight. And those cups are both very, very, very well balanced. It is extremely hard to build a team of 6 that you feel like it's foolproof. I've built a team of 6 for Twilight that I love, and I don't think it's foolproof. That's how well balanced this cup is. It's really, really tough to build an ironclad team with either of those metas, just because they're so open. So many things are viable in either one.
Well, I was gonna say with regionals specifically, it's like almost completely open-ended. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of staple picks like your Azumarils and Metachams and Skarmories and things like that. They're gonna show up a lot, but you can build a team that doesn't have those and still find success for sure. In fact, one of the picks on my team, current team of 6, is Alolan Raichu for regionals, which was not even close to on my radar until I was chatting with this gentleman by the trainer name of Peace Love Hugs, who got 2nd place at the Chicago Regionals, and we were talking about at Worlds in Chicago, and we were talking about his regionals team, and he was like, yeah, Alolan Raichu was my MVP, and I'm just like, in what world? Like, what the heck? And then I've been looking at it, and it's great. It's really good. It's very useful.
Yeah, didn't it get, what is it, Grass Knot?
It got Grass Knot, which I'm using it with Grass Knot. I don't know that you need to use it with Grass Knot. I don't know that it's better with Grass Knot. But it's sort of a neat thing that your opponents have to consider, at the very least. So
I just feel like it's cool that it has, like, a counter move for the ground types, which are, like, one of the best counters for it. It's the Alolan variant, so, you can also use a Psychic counter, and that'll work fine.
Yeah, Dark and Bug can be problematic
but
as well.
I've always liked Pokemon that have the capacity to, like, have a counter to their counter.
Yeah, so yeah, I love these 2 cups. I think they're really, really well balanced. I mean, I could go down the list for regionals and Boulder and not Boulder, excuse me, not Boulder. I could go down the list for Twilight or regionals and just name dozens and dozens of Pokemon that are great. Azumarill, Metacham, Skarmory. I think Altaria will find some use with lots of grass types and Swampert around. Bastiodon, Jirachi's new. If you were lucky enough to go somewhere, it's very strong. Whiscash is still good. Lucario's interesting. Bronzong is way better than it used to be with the new charge moves. Tropius and Venusaur are still great. Melmetal, Quagsire, Steelix, Haunter, Toxicroak, Hitmonchan, Charizard, Marowak, Sableye, Umbreon. I mean, and I'm only like 20 Pokemon in. Relicanth, Victreebel, Wigglytuff is new and improved. Lantern, Lapras, Lugia, which more people probably have now than ever before. Sunny Cast Form. I mean,
oh my
Frostless. There's so many things that you can use on this team, and it'll work. So yeah, just like we said, the regionals meta, wide open. So many amazing things to choose from. So many things you have to account for. It's simultaneously super frustrating and super fascinating to try and create a comprehensive, good team.
And it's like, I feel like it's one of those things where it's like, it's difficult to even give advice for how to build a regionals team, because
Right.
there's just so much.
It's like, yeah, so you need to build a team that can account for these 45 Pokemon and maybe a few other ones. So just let me know how that goes, right? It's so hard. It's incredibly difficult. I mean, I built a team, and then I look at it later, and I'm like, man, Lantern kills my whole team, and that's like not a top meta pick. It's just like, oh, you have to account for everything. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So, really fun. I'm excited for that one. But my number 1 cup is definitely Twilight. I'm very, very excited about Twilight. Twilight is, well, the first time around, to be honest, Twilight was an extremely well-balanced and interesting cup. The Dark Poison dual type Pokemon had a pretty big advantage the first time around, because Toxicroak was pretty much one of the only ways to deal with them. So you sort of force people's hands in that way. But being that Toxicroak was such a good counter, it wasn't really that unbalanced. So it was a very, very fun and challenging meta for me the first time around. And now the options are a little more open. Honestly, it's not that changed, but there's a few tweaks here and there that make a huge difference. For instance, Tentacruel has its dynamic totally turned upside down. It used to be you have your spammy quick move and a huge hard-hitting charge move, and that's the end of your roll, right? That's all you did as Tentacruel. Now you have access to Acid Spray, so you can do all kinds of funky shenanigans with Tentacruel, and it's gone from kind of like a cool theoretical role player on a team to something that you really have to account for and deal with. It's very different there. Let's see, and then Acid Spray on Alolan Muck as well has done similar things there. Let's see, where we at? Twilight. Golbat is still super strong. Umbreon is still very strong. Toxicroak obviously is almost a necessity against a lot of these teams because counters is a great move, and then
Mud Bomb.
Mud Bomb, yeah. I was like, what's the ground move he's got? Mud Bomb is great. Azumarill is very strong once again. Venomoth, I feel like this time around a lot more people have that Venomoth with the legacy move. It was pretty rare the first time around. I've managed to find one. I know a few other people in town have them. It's fantastic. So many things. Frostlass is great. Frostlass,
Yeah.
one of his favorite Pokemon. I love it in this cup as well. I think it's really good. Tyranitar, all the dark poisons. Venusaur's a little worse this time around, and I can't figure out why. Because the first time around, I think I ran Venusaur because I was afraid of Azumarills, and I was afraid of, well, mostly it was Azumarill, I think, that I was scared of, and I needed something to deal with. But there still really aren't that many Azumarill counters. But now there's Charm users, which Venusaur is great against.
Oh, yeah.
But for some reason, Venusaur seems worse, and I can't figure out why. I can't figure it out. I'm not running it currently on my team. I know some people are still, which absolutely is reasonable with Azumarill running around. The Charm users, like I said, Wigglytuff is now definitely a thing, as well as Clefable, and what's the other Charm one? The weird one you have to evolve. Togekiss.
Oh, yeah.
Is a really interesting pick as well. Now a lot more people have Haunters. Nidoqueen with the new charge moves is really strong.
Yeah, I honestly, I like the versatility of Nidoqueen, and I really want to try to use one. Because it has poison Jab for the Fairy types.
Mm-hmm.
It has Earth Power for the Poison types, and it has Stone Edge for the Flyers. Like, I like it.
Yeah, it's
and
good.
I want to use it.
It's very solid. Again, it's got high cost charge moves, which sort of balances it out a little bit, but again, super strong. Dustox is still fine. I mean, Beedrill is sort of interesting. Sneasel is also in that same boat. Sableye could find some use. To wrap up, or did you want to, was there anything else you wanted to cover?
I mean, I feel like that's pretty much it.
So,
unless there's like something specific you wanted to mention about the Mirror Cup or anything like that.
no, well, I mean, I guess one final thing is a big thank you to a few people. One, for Niantic for making PvP a thing. I had all but given up hope, to be honest. I was just like, well, I was slowing down with the game. I was pretty close to just being like, I guess I'm done with this little chapter of my life. And I have been totally reinvigorated with that, thanks to them. So big thanks to Niantic. Huge thanks, shout-outs to Sylph Arena for making all this cup, organizing it, putting together all the infrastructure for everybody. I mean, what an incredible task and job they've done. It's obviously not flawless from Niantic or the Sylph Arena's perspective. We're all learning here. This is our first go-around, right? Like I said, everyone's making mistakes. We're just making fewer. So Niantic, the Silpharina, and then local leaders. Local leaders in our community, local leaders in your community. Be sure to thank them. I mean, they do a lot for the community. I mean, they do a lot for us. They do a lot for you. They put in a lot of work and time and effort and money into making these things happen. So
And get like almost nothing back from all of that work, other than just contributing to the community.
right.
So yeah, thank your Discord admin.
Yeah.
Just yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
For,
Always a
for
pleasure.
your time. And yeah, thanks for tuning in, and for everybody watching. And I guess leave a comment or talk about dorky hats or something. All right. Well, I'll see you guys next time.